You know, I'm going to talk a little bit about faith because I believe faith had a lot to do. I'm going to say it had a hell of a lot to do with my transformation. And the reason I say that because I had to actually say it in order to believe it. And then I had to believe it before I could see it. So for my situation, there was different steps of faith. I had to say things to myself repetitively, how do you say it? Over and over again. I had to say it over and over and over again because of the mental loop that I was in. It was nonstop. It was like a nonstop carousel, a carousel of thoughts, right? So I had to have a pattern interruption in order to get that loop to slow down. In order to do that, I had to say things to myself over and over and over again. And I had the end result was I had to have a certain amount of belief that things would eventually get better if I stayed consistent. And that's a whole key here. You got to stay consistent. To have debilitating depression like I had for numerous years, nonstop around the clock, tick tock, I watch the clock go round and round and round. Severe anxiety, awful insomnia, rumination like you wouldn't believe. All that shit that was going on in my head had to have an interruption. It was like trying to stop a freight train with your hand. I've said this before. I try to put what I went through in words, and it's so difficult really to find the words to express everything that I went through for that period of my life. So I want you to know that whatever shit you're going through, whatever mental torment you're going through and you're in, whatever degree or whatever level of mental health despair you're in right now, please know that if you have faith and a belief that things will get different, things will be different if you stay consistent. And my message to you today is you have to put something forward. You have to put 1 foot forward. You have to take that initial step. I name this channel Bold Possibilities because the first step has to be bold. You have to take that first step. You have to be bold to take your first step. And I believe you have to give yourself little wins. Because there's going to be days, at least in my experience, that you felt like you had this itty little bitty tiny win. And then the next 4 fucking days are torment again. So you feel like that little win was gone, but it's really not gone. Because that little win is still there. And maybe the next time you have that period of shitty days, they won't be as intense. Or maybe they won't be as many in a row. So just know, you got to get your mind, because all this shit happens in the brain, right? All of this is taking place right here. It's not out there. It's right here. And I had to learn, and you've heard me say this before, I had to learn to control this separately than my mind. I got my mind to be like the conductor of an orchestra, because the voices I heard, the message I heard, the shit that I was going on in here was fucking me up. And I wanted it to stop, and I had no way of stopping it. Therapist, medication, cognitive behavioral therapy, ketamine, you name whatever they tried on me, and it wasn't working. So I'm preaching to you in a way. I'm giving it to you. I'm giving you everything I got because I want you to understand that the level you're at, it can and I believe will change if you stay consistent. But it has to start with believing it can. And I've said this to you before. When your brain believes it, your eyes will see it. You got to believe it before you're going to see it. So I trained my mind. I had to overpower that barrage of negative fucking thoughts to slow down. And now today, on the other side of depression, there may be a whisper here or there, but they don't get me anymore. It's not, they don't, I'm not in their grasp. Those thoughts are so quiet. if and when they even arise, they have zero effect on me. Whereas before, they fucking controlled every ounce of me. And that's why I want to kill myself with the bullet, the knife, or the pills. I wanted out. I had enough, right? What kept me going was, obviously, I've said this before, my son was my biggest why. When you know what you want and why you want it, your hows will show up. Okay? I knew what I wanted. I want to be free of this that shitty feeling I had inside me. And it wasn't just days of sadness. It went way beyond the sadness part of it. It was, my nervous system was shot. It felt like I had my foot on the accelerator pedal of a $500,000 sports car with no oil in the engine. I was burned that fucker out. I felt like I fried my body. I fried my nervous system to the point where I was like so fucking anxious that I couldn't work out. And here is somebody who I worked out since I've been 15 years old. And that period of 5 years, I walk in the gym, I felt so out of sorts. My body was so fried and fucked that I couldn't even stay in the gym because of how weird I felt. How fried I felt. I couldn't get through it. I would walk in the gym, and there are times I left. So I stopped going. I told you before, it was the biggest mind fucks that I've ever been through my entire life. And I'm sharing it with you because I believe that you can get through this. And when you message me and send me whatever situation you're in, if I can offer you an ounce of suggestion or a tip or an idea that gives you an ounce of hope, that's one step further to where you want to be. And everybody wants to experience emotional freedom. I told you this before. When you start detaching from those familiar thoughts, it's going to feel unfamiliar because you're so used to having those thoughts, right? But the unfamiliarity of it all is a sign you're heading in the right direction. You know, when I share my story with people, and the first thing they say is, "Yeah, but you don't know my situation," what they're really doing is justifying and defending their current state of being and subconsciously triggering emotions that's keeping them stuck in the loop of that depression, anxiety. You give it a title, whatever title you want. It's keeping them stuck in that cycle by justifying, protecting it, defending it. It's like talking to the smoker who smokes 2 packs a day and they say, "Yeah, but I can't quit." So what we're really saying is you're going to keep feeding that habit by not quitting. It's not easy. Fuck, I understand it's not easy. I get that. But for me, it was worth it. I said this before. The amount of work and effort it took to get my ass out of that state of depression pales in comparison to having to live a life of depression in that same state. I train the mind to override the brain. Override is a good word because right now you have a default setting, right? So you need to override that. If you look behind me, there's a blue sky and there's trees. If you open your eyes to the world, there's a source of energy that created all this and you. When I started to, and obviously we take it for granted. I took it for granted for so many years. When I finally stopped to realize that blue sky, the oceans, the mountains, the lakes, you name it, every single thing down to the smallest gnat on this earth was created by a source of energy. Now I don't want to get too deep and to scare people away with this whole, energy thing, but it's the fucking truth. It's the truth. And if it sounds hokey, I get it. But you know what? Energy is never created or destroyed. It just changes form. So right now, you may be stuck in a negative state of energy, which means it can be changed. But it's not going to change on its own. What you want to do is understand that it can't, first of all, understand that it can be changed. And once you understand it can be changed, then you want to believe it's possible for you. And once you believe that it's possible for you, what's going to happen, it sounds crazy, But when your mind tells the brain that it's possible, the brain will start to listen. Eventually, it's going to start to listen. And the biggest takeaway from this video, I hope for you, would be try to imagine yourself without the feelings of depression. In other words, let's say you woke up tomorrow morning and you didn't feel that huge weight of depression. I'm not going to say that's going to happen tomorrow. It didn't happen for me. It took me many, many years to finally get to this other side of it. Okay? But 5 years of constant hell was the price I paid for emotional freedom that I've never experienced my entire life. Who would you be if you woke up tomorrow and you were free of that depression? You're free of that heaviness, that ill feeling you have. Who would you be? And if you can imagine yourself in that state without those feelings, that would be your first step, because what you want to do is you want to get your brain to feel how it would feel. So sit quietly, sit in meditation and ask yourself, how would I feel if I didn't feel depressed? And the first few times you do it, you may not feel any differently. But the more you do it, consistency is the key, right? You keep doing it over and over and over. I'm to the point now that in my morning meditations that I do every single day religiously, I customize my meditations for me, for my brain. When I sit in my meditation, I say things to myself. I hear the words in my head, and then as soon as I hear the word, the phrase, the mantra, whatever you want to call it, I associate a feeling to that phrase, that mantra. I have a connection of a feeling to what I'm hearing. And I swear to you, it's the most bizarre thing that I've ever experienced, because what it does, it starts changing the neurons, the neural pathways in the brain. Neuroplasticity is the real fucking deal. Okay, do not let anybody tell you any differently. It's the only way I can explain how I was able to transform from where I was to where I am now. It was a supernatural transformation that consisted of constructing new neurons and neural pathways in the brain. In a nutshell, that's called neuroplasticity. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get you to understand, that your brain is not hardwired to stay the way it's going to stay for the rest of your life unless you don't do anything about it. It's malleable. It's changeable. You can change those brain neurons, okay? What you want to do is believe it first. Believe it that you can. Say it, believe it, say it, believe it, say it. However you want to, whatever order you want to put it in, you got to stay consistent with that every day. And when you leave the house in the morning, after you sit down and have that meditation, take those thoughts with you out in the world and let them play. Let them play over again. You know, rumination was so god awful for me. Like, I can't even explain the intensity of the rumination that I felt. It was so bad during the day, but at least during the day I was able to move and go, right? And get out and to keep moving. I would even go for a walk and try to stay preoccupied. At night is when it really just fucked me up. Trying to sleep with that rumination going on and on created the worst panic attacks and nighttime anxiety I've ever experienced in my entire life, and would not wish it upon anybody. I've told you this before. I could not sleep. I'm not talking for weeks or months. I'm talking for years. I told you this before. I'd have to take a Xanax to get 90 minutes of 90 minutes of sleep periodically throughout a period of years. On top of the debilitating depression, severe anxiety, was the insomnia that was adding to it. It was a total fucking mess. So please understand this. I'm going to say it again. I'll keep saying it. As long as you're listening to me, I'm going to keep saying it. You can get through whatever you're going through. I have no doubt that you can. Okay? And for the days you don't believe you can, hear my voice telling you, you can. You can get through this, okay? Message me, DM me, comment, share your experiences with me. And the more I hear from you, the more I can share to your specifics. Like I'm sitting here giving you a general generalization, an overall picture of everything I've been through, okay? But the more you send me, the more specific I can respond to your situation. So I hope you found something in this video informative and helpful. And as you can tell, I have a lot to say. And up here, the words are there. They don't always come out as clearly as I would like them to. But I think you get the point. The point is I have zero expectations or for these videos. I'm not attached to the outcome, put it that way. I just want to share. I don't know where it's landing or who's hearing it. By you getting me feedback, then we can continue to grow and build on this channel. Bold possibilities. So what I want for you, I want you to be fucking bold. Believe you can get through this. So then I can see you on the other side of it. Got it? I'll see you in the next video.